former Governor Sarah Palin. She says goodbye to public office.
I will be able to fight even harder for you.
And by fight for you, she of course means continue her personal battle with the media.
So, how about, in honor of the American soldier, you quit making things up?
Is she forgetting that check Keith wrote to the Alaska Special Olympics for every time she lied about the bridge to nowhere? Good evening from New York. I'm Lawrence O'Donnell. Keith Olbermann has the night off. This time last year, there was speculation that Senator John McCain might be on the verge of announcing that he had selected a popular Republican governor as his running mate. No, not that Republican governor. The governor in question was actually Tim Pawlenty of Minnesota. Instead, in our fifth story on the countdown, Senator McCain was actually weeks away from even starting to vet the woman who would join his ticket at the last minute, the once obscure Sarah Palin, no longer the governor of Alaska. Mark her down as officially unofficial. Ms. Palin handed over the governorship Sunday with more than a year left in her term. But she did not leave without some measure of fanfare, saying goodbye to Alaskans at a series of picnics across the state. In fact, she said a lot more than just goodbye, but not much that actually made sense.
Together we do stand with gratitude for our troops who protect all of our cherished freedoms, including our freedom of speech, which, par for the course, I'm going to exercise.
Former Governor Palin has developed an odd love-hate relationship with the media. Love, that network cameras would even be there to see Palin resign, as they would not have been for any other small state governor leaving office for no good reason. Hate, that with national attention has come national scrutiny.
Some straight talk for some, just some, in the media. Because another right protected for all of us is freedom of the press. And you have such important jobs, reporting facts and informing the electorate and exerting power to influence. You represent what could and should be a respected, honest profession that could and should be a cornerstone of our democracy. Democracy depends on you. And that's why our troops are willing to die for you. So, how about, in honor of the American soldier, you quit making things up?
Do as she says, but presumably not as she does. The list of fibs told by Sarah Palin has only grown almost exponentially in the 10 months since we first learned she was for Alaska's bridge to nowhere before she was against it. Something else the former governor is supposedly against? Government largesse.
Alaska, there is much good in store further down the road. But to reach it, we must value and live the optimistic, pioneering spirit that made the state proud and free. And we can resist enslavement to big central government that crushes hope and opportunity. Be wary of accepting government largesse.
You'd never guess, listening to the former governor, that for every dollar Alaska residents send to the federal government in taxes, the state of Alaska gets back and spends $1.84. In short, Alaskans cannot survive without federal money, which was kind of the point of becoming a state in the first place. Still, Sarah Palin pretends they don't need the money that keeps the state alive.
I resisted the stimulus package, and we have championed earmark reform, slashing earmark requests by 85% to break the cycle of dependency on a stifling, unsustainable federal agenda.
Former Governor Palin would not say yesterday whether she has any plans to develop a federal agenda of her own. Her husband Todd would say only that she's not going to disappear. As for quitting on her constituents, well, remember, she did that for them, including a heckler who doubted her.
It is because I love Alaska this much, sir, that I feel that it is my duty to avoid the unproductive, typical, politics as usual, lame duck session in one's last year in office. How does that benefit you? No, with this decision now, I will be able to fight even harder for you, for what is right and for truth.
For more on Sarah Palin, let's bring in radio host Shannyn Moore from KBYR in Alaska. She is also a contributor to HuffingtonPost.com. Good evening, Shannyn.
Good evening, Lawrence.
You know, we know that Sarah Palin has resigned, but we get the feeling she's not going away. What does it feel like in Alaska?
Well, you know, I was really watching closely yesterday during her last stop on the Quitstock to see if she would maybe quitting and pull a mavericky move and decide to stay. It was so up in the air of what was really going to happen. None of the reasons have really stuck. In fact, they've been basically every reason she's given has been overturned by the media here. So, you know, she's not going away. We have a lot of political shrapnel caused by the McCain-Palin campaign that started last fall and just continued throughout this past, 7 months.
So is Alaska suffering from Palin fatigue?
I don't know if it's Palin fatigue, which I've had probably since before you knew her name, but maybe more of a political post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a really small state, and the conditions here can get really rough. She went over those in great eloquence yesterday, and you can't afford to have the sort of bitter divides when someone's broke down on the side of the road at 10 below. You don't look at their bumper stickers. You just stop and help them. And the division and the bitterness and the nastiness here. All of her allies were thrown under the bus. Everyone that helped pass her legislation, ACES and AGEA, were all really just thrown under the bus last year by the McCain campaign. So, there's a lot to recover from.
Now, she's very angry at us in the national media for, as she puts it, making things up. But isn't that something she was doing in Alaska for a long time, and you guys knew about it long before we did?
Yeah, I mean, she's classic, and that's part of Palin. She's not interested in the truth to tell a lie. She's just going to say whatever as long as it benefits her. And there have been so many things. She's come out just recently with her whole Washington Post piece on cap and trade. Well, our own, all of her advisors were saying that was going to actually help her gas line. So if she's doing this for Alaska, it's really hard to see that. And if she just wants to leave and go make a lot of money and not be pestered by the silliness of government, then just say it. But don't get on the Alaska cross and say that she's doing it for us. She simply isn't.
And are any of those irritating investigations going to be following Sarah Palin wherever she goes now?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if people realize this, but for 2 years, up to 2 years starting from yesterday, people can continue to file ethics complaints. The most recent one, the Daniel report that came out last week, very damaging, basically said that she wasn't allowed to keep using her name and stature as government or as the governor to raise money for a slush fund. She said she wasn't, and then it's come out that she was actually signing thank you cards to people who had donated. That's, she was offered the chance to give the money back. She didn't want to do that, and then the report was leaked. So I think that one particularly is going to be problematic for her.
Well, we'll follow it. Shannyn Moore, radio host and blogger, thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.